recording, please. There you go.
Okay, excellent. So once again, as always, thank you all for joining us here on this beautiful Friday morning as we were just discussing for today's NSAW operational meeting. If there's anybody new here on the call, I'm Alex Weidenhammer, the Director for Workforce Training with the ICCB, and I oversee a lot of the operations for the non-credit strategies at work grant. So nice to meet you if you're new, and welcome back if you've been kind of a vet on this grant here over the past few years. So for today's meeting, let me get this out of the way. So for today's meeting, Amy said that everyone's already going ahead and putting their names and their colleges in the chat. So thank you for doing that. For today's items, we're going to be focusing on kind of hopping back and forth between our new round of the grant coming in January of FY26, and then just some follow-up on our last quarter here for the FY25 grant. We'll start with a status update for the FY26 grant, and then move on to a Q3 expenditure update and discussion regarding the overall expenditure rating for our 25 grant. The next item will be our NSAW data work group. At the last operational meeting, we kind of had a discussion with everybody regarding proper reporting and trying to find a nice balance between our recording our unduplicated and our duplicated numbers on our JOT form report. And we met with a group of colleges who volunteered to be a part of that data work group. So we're here to report out on a few things that we've gained some insight for moving on into FY26. And then we're going to talk about the FY25 unduplicated participant pilot. It's just going to be a quick, simple addition to the Q4 report, and I'll explain more of that once we get to that slide. And then we're going to move on to our NSAW conference RFPs, request for presentations. Our conference is set here in February of 2026. The RFPs are now open, and we are excited to have another round of the conference this year. We're looking forward to bring everybody back together for another year of non-credit sharing, right? And then finally, we'll finish up with some grant logistics, because in the next few months, there are quite a few meetings that we have on the schedule, and I wanted to cover those and once again make sure that everybody who needs those invites has those available. So for the first item, just a quick touch base for the FY26 grant. So far, we've received a majority of our revision requests for FY26, both programmatic and financial. But if for some reason you haven't submitted your FY26 NSAW revisions, please reach out directly to me, and I can help you expedite that process. For those of you who have submitted your reports, or not your reports, your revisions, we are now moving on to next steps in the grant agreement process, just doing final reviews of budgets to make sure everything adds up correctly and all the ducks are in a row. And with that, our ICCB staff, our grants management team, namely, and also our compliance team will be reaching out in the coming weeks with those grant agreements to move on with the FY26 funding. We know that this is kind of the time of year we're hitting the first round of the holiday shuffle here next week, when we got Thanksgiving, Black Friday, moving to Christmas, New Year's. But we're trying to keep this process moving so we can have a timely dispersal of funds, because we know that aside from our process with the ICCB, the funding also has to be moved to the comptroller, which then moves on to all of you. And we want to make sure that we're trying to get those funds out in a timely manner. So once the grant begins, you can begin with your activities for the year. So real quick, has anybody had any issues with submitting their revisions? I know I've spoken with a few colleges. We're utilizing JotForm as our sort of collection platform for this year for all of the revisions. And there were a few little technical snafus here and there, but I feel like everything's pretty much been worked out at this point. But I just wanted to make sure, did anybody have any questions about getting the revisions in, what next steps are?
Alex, can I ask a question about our current grant year's modifications?
Yes.
I know that the clock is winding down for the current year, and we do have one that's pending that will affect a purchase that we have to make. Do you have an estimation on when those might get moved through?
I would say here, I can't say exactly, because we do have that 30-day sort of period where we're doing our review.
Sure.
I would say here in the coming weeks, hopefully, our grants management team also has to review those budget modifications, and our grants management team is kind of, they're swamped right now. They've got a lot of work.
Yeah.
but I'm trying to work with our team here to kind of expedite that process
Okay.
as quickly as possible. So I will, Suzanne, I will look into your budget modification, just kind of see what the status is on that. And I think
Okay.
there
Appreciate it.
are also a few other budget modifications that are in the queue right now that have been partially approved. But we're going to, like I said, be working on those here in the coming weeks.
Great. Yeah, I just want to make sure, just so that way we can move and, kind of get everything buttoned up for the close of the grant. So thank you so much, Alex.
Of course. Were there any other questions? And on that note, were there any questions about budget modifications for FY25? I know we have a queue that's we're working through right now. So I know that if anybody has a budget modification that you have submitted by that November 1st deadline, the same message would apply to you that we are working through those to get those moved through as timely as possible.
Can I say lovingly and jokingly, y'all swamped us. We got a good number of those right on the deadline from NSAW.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing, that's kind of what happens towards this happened last year with FY24 as well. And we know things change and we know that employers might back out of an agreement or maybe a change of scope possibly as well. We need to move this funding. I know that everyone's working to ensure that we are expending these funds because that's so vitally important, right? To continue with this work is that we show the legislature that there is a need for the monies that are distributed every year for the grant. But yeah, one thing is that when we get all those on November 1st, it kind of bottlenecks us a little bit. We have a lot to work through. But as Chris just said, we're working through that. And yeah, I mean, that's all I kind of really have for an update on that point. If anybody has any further questions too, if you don't want to talk about it here during the meeting, you can also just reach out to us directly and we can have an aside conversation or a meeting. Okay. And if there's no more questions for this portion, be on the lookout for the FY26 grant agreements here in the coming weeks. And if you have any questions about those, always feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help. So the next item we're going to look at is just a quick, I'll get this window out of here. There we go. Just a quick financial update regarding the FY25 grant. Once again, from year to year, we like to make sure that we are tracking the trends and making sure that we're on schedule with the spend out of funds. I know that I attended the ISEC conference a few weeks ago, and one of the questions that was posed was, could there possibly be a shift for the NSAW grant from the calendar year to the fiscal year in July? And at this time, we're not looking at shifting the grant to a different grant cycle. I know that working on the calendar year, it presents a unique set of roadblocks, perhaps, or challenges that we have to overcome. But as you can see here, looking from FY24 to FY25, even taking into account the increase of the budget by almost $200,000, we are still very close to being on track to spending down the grant funds. You can see here in FY24 by quarter 3, there was 59% that was expended of the total of the 4.7 million. And then if you look here on FY25, we have 2.1 million of the 4.9 that have been spent totally. So that puts us at a nice 55.88%. One thing that I noted, I've read through all the quarterly reports, the financial reports, and also budget modifications. A lot of people had to do some shifting, moving things around. And then also a lot of activities are going to be occurring within that quarter 4 of the grant itself. So I've touched base with a few of the colleges and a majority of the colleges actually just kind of asking about their overall plans for spending down funds and if they are on track to spend the totality of their award. And it seems that everybody is on track. But if you ever have any unforeseen situations that arise and you need maybe some additional guidance or some brainstorming of how to spend funds, always feel to reach out to us. I mean, that's kind of why we're here, right? We're here to help all of you with that process. So with the Q3 financial update, now we're going to, does anybody have any questions about the information here. It's just a very broad overview of our expenditure levels currently. Just want to make sure that everybody kind of knows where we're at with the grant. Okay, well, we will move on to our next item. So last week, we met with a group of colleges who volunteered to be a part of our NSAW data work group. One of the questions that we have sort of elevated at the ICCB is ensuring that aside from counting our duplicated numbers, which I believe tells a very particular story about repeated participants, employers for our grant, we're also looking to begin capturing our unduplicated numbers as well for the NSAW grant. So we can have those two numbers, that data, which is really important when we report that to the legislature. I think that it's important for us to be collecting both pieces of that information because they tell two different stories, right? I think people have mentioned that on earlier operational calls. Not only do we want to show just the total number of who have been served through grant funds and through your programs, but also those who come back as well. I think those are two very important stories to tell. And our work group really kind of worked to provide some insight into sort of their process for capturing unduplicated numbers and kind of talking about how we can continue to tailor our JOT form report and our data collection process on the ICCB side to ensure that we are capturing everything that we need. And I didn't know if anybody, I know there's a few people on the call who were part of that work group, and I didn't know if anybody wanted to sort of speak to the information that we shared or we talked about during our data work group meeting this past week.
Well, I was going to give somebody else a chance to talk, but you know me, never shy.
That's good.
So for the College of Lake County, because the program we have, um, the individuals can start, the employees can start anytime, as long as they end by the end of the grant. And many of them do take anywhere from 3/4 to a quarter. Some of them are super motivated. So and many are taking 2 classes. So we wanted to make sure that, you know, we're providing the correct data to ICCB. So in our discussion, for the College Lake County, we've been providing duplicated seats in our report, but it's very easy for us to provide the unduplicated. Obviously, we have all the names, so that's super easy to do. And my recommendation was let's provide both, and ICCB can look at that and see, you know, if it's making any sense to them. I know there were discussions from other colleges. I'll let them talk about series, you know, classes that are series of several, you know, subclasses or modules. But I was happy to be part of the group. I think, you know, we have a lot of similarities, but also some differences. So hopefully this will help ICCB determine, you know, what's helpful.
Of course. Yeah, thank you, Eric. So yeah, one point that you brought up there was that everyone's process is different. Everyone's sort of inner organizational structures are different, right? The way that people are doing their classes, their trainings. So we want to take that into account as well as we are continuing to tailor our data collection processes. And on the next slide, once we get into that, I'm going to kind of talk about our pilot, because a lot of the colleges on prior operational meetings in our data work group said that it would be very easy for them to collect those unduplicated numbers because, as Eric just said, all the names are there. It's just kind of putting that all together. So thank you, Eric. And I don't know if anybody else. Oh, go ahead.
This is Eilish from Oakton College. I just wanted to say similar, just to piggyback on what Eric was saying. We just have a small group who, you know, it overlaps for 2 quarters. And I know in the past I've reported the number of people attending, and then when it comes to the second quarter, the number of people receiving certificates. So there is some duplication there, but it won't be a problem for me to gather, you know, the unduplicated numbers for the fiscal year. So
Thank you, Alish.
sure.
And Alex, I just wanted to add, I think where we ended up with was that the fourth quarter report would have a space to provide unduplicated enrollments and completions so that this way you've got kind of both sets of data and you can decide how to use it.
Yes, yeah, Teresa, that's the next point that we're going to move on to, that pilot that we're going to be having for quarter 4. So I think that was a really important conclusion that we came to from our meeting. So thank you.
Well, we must have been brilliant because nobody's debating it with us.
Oh, it's always a good sign. Had a good group, you know. But there's a few other things that came up during our work group meeting as well. So we kind of toyed around with the idea about how to, well, some programs within trainings, maybe there are multiple credentials that are awarded during that program as well. So we're also looking for a way, say if your training you're having one training, right, like a series that all of the participants would go through, but along that series, along that line, there are multiple credentials to be awarded. So that's one thing that we're looking at with the JOT form, is to see how we can make sure that we're also making sure we're capturing all those credentials as well. Because sometimes when we have a completer, it could equal one credential awarded, but sometimes if there's multiple credentials within a training, that person can earn up to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, so on and so forth. So that's one thing that we're looking at with our JOT form, is to make sure that we have a process set in place, some guidance from the ICCB to make sure that everyone's collecting those numbers as well for their credentials. And I think our next work group meeting is going to be here. I think it's in December. So we're going to have another discussion around this. After our first round of the pilot, we're going to kind of see where the numbers are and sort of what insights we can gather from that pilot as well to continue tailoring our JOT form and our data collection. So Eric, Teresa, thank you and Eilish, thank you for hopping on and giving some insight to everybody here in the group. And that
Alex,
actually,
I'm sorry, it's Pat Callis from
oh,
McHenry.
my bad.
I just have a quick question. I just want to make sure, because I checked in with Levon. This wasn't mandatory for quarter 4 this time, right? It's, right. I just want to make sure we will have it for next year. We're changing our process for 2026, but we didn't have the undupes easily available. So,
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
you're right. You're right. And like I said, this is just going for any sort of guidance or guidelines, I guess, that we put into place for data collection. A lot of that will actually be coming into play for FY26. And that's on the next slide here. Well, I'll just move into our next slide here because that kind of segues nicely into our next point. So for FY25, as I've mentioned multiple times here, for quarter 4, we are going to be asking, but it's not required, that the colleges provide their total unduplicated number of participants, and it's not on the slide here, I forgot to enter that, but the number of completers as well. So the number enrolled and then the number completed. For that number, we don't require that needs to be broken out by area of focus. So it wouldn't need to be broken out by employer or non-employer or by trainings or services. We're just looking at what the total number of enrollees and then completers will be for the year. And we don't have a specific box because we're working with our data team to sort of streamline our JOT form, because currently with our JOT form, I can't remember exactly how much Jay said. There was over 300 lines of different data that are being filtered through our Power BI system that they use to create our JOT form dashboard. So the report's grown to be quite large. But for quarter 4 of FY25, we're just asking everybody to put those total numbers in the optional comment box, which is at the very bottom of your report when you enter that. And like I said, you don't need to break it out by the 3 main buckets of the NSAW grant. We're just looking for those total numbers themselves, just to see, kind of take a pulse of where everybody's at with their unduplicated numbers, and then also with their data collection processes. Because we know that some colleges, they can easily access that information, but for others, it might be more of a heavy lift on their end, so they might not be able to. But once again, this is just an optional, or not optional, this is a suggested measure for our quarter 4 report. And then, as I mentioned before, any sort of formal guidance or requirements or changes for data collection, those will be coming into play in FY26 and will actually be covered at our January kickoff meeting. We're going to be going through the job form report once again, just kind of working through each of those measures on there. And additionally, we are also working on a formal written guidance for everyone as well that we can make as a resource to all of our grantees. To share, say, if somebody is new to the grant and they might be working on the data collection, to kind of capture some suggestions, some recommendations, and some best practices that everybody working on the grant can employ when they are collecting their data. So like I said, this is not going to be a requirement. It's not one of your programmatic measures that it's not in the NOFO, right? It's not a requirement for the grant, but we are just trying to, once again, just get a feel for where everybody's at with their unduplicated numbers for the grant. And as always, if you have any questions, hopefully that all makes sense. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're always here to kind of talk through things and then be on the lookout for more guidance in the future. Specifically our kickoff meeting. That's where we're going to share a lot of that important information moving forward. Okay, are there any questions or comments? I don't know if there's anything in the chat. I can't really pull up the chat right now since I'm sharing.
We just got one here.
Sure.
Christy says, I believe I understand who is a completer, but just to confirm, is someone who is not a completer just a no-show or drop?
So at that point, they would technically be enrolled in the course, I believe. So that would show up in the enrollment number when we ask for that, the total number enrolled. But then the completer will be who actually went through the entirety of the program, received their credential. And once again, that's something else that kind of brings up some other points as well that we have to kind of think about. So maybe I can do some looking into that particular question, provide some more insight. So thank you, Dalton, for sharing that.
Of course.
Okay. There are no more questions. We'll move on to our next item. Okay, so as I stated earlier, we are excited to have another year of our NSAW conference for FY26 here coming up in February. And as everybody might have seen from emails coming out from ICSPS, the RFPs are now live for. Oh, Amy, I see your hand up there. You can go ahead.
No, I want you to cover all this. I just want to let you know that the due date we did extend. I met with Levon yesterday and we've extended that. I believe it's to November 24th. That announcement will be coming out on the listserv shortly this morning. But there is still time for each and every one of you to get in your request for presentation. So I'll hand it back over to Alex, but the due date, sorry, Alex, we just extended that last night about 5 o'clock. Levon called and said, let's extend it. And I said, yay. So please get those in. And those of you who have submitted, thank you so much for submitting. And we'll put the link in the chat. And Alex, go ahead.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, so now there's more time for everyone to get in their requests or their presentation requests. So one thing for the FY26 conference is that we want to continue showing, as you can see here on the slide, our main focus is going to be demonstrating value. From all of the programs from FY24, moving to FY25 and FY26, there is strong data and there's strong outcomes showing that our non-credit work is making an impact on the students, the employers, and the people all throughout our state. So one thing that we want to do is really hone in on showing everyone what the value is of our non-credit programs throughout the state as well, and specifically through our NSAW grant. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've read all the applications throughout the years and all the quarterly reports, and there are really some impressive, innovative, and impactful programs going on throughout the state. And so, as Amy mentioned, our deadline has been extended. So if you are maybe kind of on the fence about presenting at the conference, we highly recommend that you do. It's a great space. We're going to have everyone together. We're partnering with ISET and WeTrain, our two partnering non-credit organizations, to bring everyone together for this conference to kind of present ourselves as a united front. right, in the non-credit world to show that there is unity between our organizations, our colleges, and to continue demonstrating, once again, demonstrating the value of these programs. So there are four main topic areas that we are looking for. As you can see here, we've broken those out into the following categories. So strategies that work with employers. So anything that really encompasses work that you are doing with your local employers who are being served through non-credit grants. So this could be a particular customized training that has had a large number of impact on a local employer or for those workers, incumbent workers, or new workers in the area. Oh, I see Vicky raised her hand here. I'll let you.
Oh, thanks, Alex. I just wanted to ask if you could share again. I don't know if anybody else can see the share screen. I just could not.
Okay. Can everybody?
I can see it.
You
I
can
can
see
see
it?
it.
Okay. Let me see. I'll change my view. Let me see. All right. Thank you.
You got it? Okay. Awesome. So like I said, as we were going on here, one with the strategies that work with employers, one area of focus that has really grown in the past years is apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships in the non-credit space. And once again, we've seen programs that are really starting to focus on building those programs throughout the state in different sectors as well. There's healthcare, there's manufacturing, agriculture. So a very large kind of spectrum of programs that are utilizing their non-credit funds towards apprenticeships. And I believe there are some programs who are actually working towards getting those apprenticeships registered with the Department of Labor. So some really great innovative things happening within the employer space as well. And one thing I want to also point out, stackable credentials that meet employers' specifications. I think that's also a really interesting point to share. We've seen a lot of different programs utilizing different sorts of industry recognized credentials within their programs where they've worked with their employer to say, what exactly do you need from your workforce moving into these particular sectors, right? And so sharing that information is so vital because there might be programs who are looking to find a good credential for a program that needs one, or maybe tailoring a current program to embed these industry recognized stackable credentials within their program. So that's another area of focus that's very important for us to share at our conference as well. And then for the next item is strategies that work within your community. This can include open enrollment, and we are offering a track for community education this year. So kind of branching out a bit we still want the grant to be workforce focused, but we realize that in the non-credit grant, community education also plays a large role within your college's curriculum, right? So we wanted to open up a branch for community education for FY26 as well. If there's any community partnerships, we've seen that a lot of the colleges have started to work with community-based organizations for their workforce programs, for their community education programs. So once again, seeing those strong partnerships will be really, really important to see as well. Networking with partners. What are some strategies for recruitment? If there's any sort of innovative programs that are kind of, working to recruit more students in their program, what have been their strategies, or how to reach out to employers within their community college districts as well. And for the next item is strategies that work within your college. And the first point here, Lavon's mentioned this in past meetings, but kind of talking about registration and data systems. So in the past few years, we've made that a requirement, or one of the activities for the grant is to update registration and data systems for non-credit programs throughout the state. And I'll tell you, throughout the years, we've seen the benefits of that, where people are employing workforce data such as Lightcast to kind of get a pulse on what jobs are needed to be filled within their area, where's the most demand from employers, and then also what ways registration has been reinforced and what registration practices the colleges have as well, in part from the non-credit funds. One thing also is credit for prior learning is an area of focus and an area of interest that we've seen in the past years. And then also virtual and hybrid teaching models. Once again, we see that programs are employing not only the in-person, but also hybrid models into their non-credit programs as well. So seeing programs who are employing that successfully and would be really interesting to see as well. And then implementation of AI. AI is here to stay. It's for better or for worse, I guess. But we've seen that AI has actually had a very large impact on the way in which workforce programs are building themselves, reaching out to their community, helping students. So once again, we would like to see some presentations on that particular topic as well. And then also alignment, including alignment with other programs within the college, including ICAPS programs. I believe that for one of our learning communities that we're going to be having here in the next few months, we're actually bringing Angela Gerberding. She's one of our colleagues here at the ICCB who is sort of the ICAPS guru for our agency. And she's going to be talking about how ICAPS programs can be worked into non-credit programs and how that can benefit completions, student success, and so on and so forth. So another area that we are building out there as well. And then for the final item is for non-credit basics. So if there are any innovative practices when it comes to braiding funding with the non-credit grant, some success strategies, maybe some innovative uses of technology, marketing practices that have shown to be very successful, and then employing the help of small business development centers. With that as well, small business development, one thing that's, I don't know if it was up here in the second, entrepreneurship. Once again, we've seen there has been a high demand for entrepreneurial programs within the non-credit space, and we've seen a lot of success all throughout the state with those types of programs. So anybody who is running an entrepreneurial program, I would highly recommend that you put in a presentation to present. It's one area of focus that we're trying to build out at the ICCB, and I think the non-credit space kind of lends itself quite well to this particular line of work. So with all that said, so those are our four main buckets that we're looking for. If you, like I said, if you're kind of on the fence about presenting for the February conference, we highly recommend you and encourage you to. The more people that we have sharing their insight and their knowledge at this space, when we have everyone pulled together for this large conference, this meeting, I always say the more the merrier, right? It's a good opportunity to network, get to know other people at colleges, and to really sort of continue building and strengthening your programs. And once again, presenting ourselves as this strong, united front of non-credit throughout the state as well. And so I think Amy said she was going to throw the RFP link into the chat here if you haven't seen that. And there will be an announcement later today coming through the listserv about the updated due date for that. And also in this slide, when I share these out, I'll share these out directly after the meeting to our listserv. But this is actually, this header up here is a link that will take you directly to the submission page for your presentations. So once again,
I've included the RFP link in the chat now.
Awesome. Thank you, Dalton. Appreciate it. Yeah, so if you have any further questions about the conference itself or about presentations, maybe you're brainstorming an idea and maybe it doesn't fit as neatly within these categories here, just feel free to reach out. And once again, we're really excited for another year of NSAW fun. So does anybody have any questions about the conference coming up in February? And I guess just one more point real quick I want to point out is that the NSAW conference doesn't have a registration fee. And for expenses for travel, mileage, things like that, NSAW funds can cover travel expenses for the NSAW conference as well. So we're trying to make it as open and available to everybody as we can. So,
Alex, it's Jennifer from IVCC. I have a question about
hi,
that.
Jennifer. Yes.
So we booked our hotel rooms yesterday, and I was thinking they just would put a hold on, the credit card often, like they do when you make a reservation. When my assistant did it, they actually charged us. So I'm assuming it's okay to pay for that out of this year, even though the conference is next year, or I just wanted to make you aware of that because that's what happened by default. I wasn't anticipating that. I just wanted to get it over with so I didn't forget. But they actually charged the card. So
okay. And I don't know, I can't speak exactly to the hotel's processes. I didn't know if they'd charge people.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
and I'm okay with that. I just wanted you to know, because typically, since the conference is in next year, I would have paid for it out of next year's NSAW grant. But
mhm.
because we've been charged and now I have to pay that,
Right,
it's going to be out of this year. So I just wanted to let you know that, and just
sure.
because that's how it happened. So if for those of you who, let's see, Bonnie's saying something, but we'll do a ledger change for next year. Now I could do that too. I just didn't know how important it was.
No, and it would be totally allowable.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
no problem. And then with that note, actually, I believe that the room blocks are open at the hotel.
Yeah.
We're having at the Marriott Hotel in Norma, Illinois, the same location as last year. So once again, if you're kind of wanting to get all of your items in a row before the conference, the rooms are open, and also, well, the presentation requests are as well. So, okay, are there any questions or comments in the chat?
Eric just noted that the hotel reservation page was a bit funky and that you have to scroll to the bottom a bit more to not prepay. Okay.
I see.
My
Okay.
assistant obviously didn't scroll far enough.
They kind of hit it there a little bit.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Eric. Appreciate that.
Jennifer, but your college did your part. You saved a couple extra shekels.
There you go. Right?
There we go. Okay. Any other questions or comments? I think we're moving along pretty quickly here through items. We probably won't take the whole time here today, but okay, I will move on to our final item, which is grant logistics. So, as I said earlier, in the coming months, we have a lot of meetings that are going to be hopefully on everybody's calendars. We encourage everybody to attend these operational meetings, kickoff meetings, learning communities, because once again, we are trying to, especially for the non-credit learning communities, I want to kind of talk about this. Next week, we have our first learning community for the FY26 grant, which is going to serve as an introduction. As we mentioned in previous meetings, we are partnering with ISET and WeTrain to host these non-credit learning communities and focus on topics that are the most requested and what would be the most impactful for all of you who are doing the work out there in the field. And I believe that our mission, once again, is to present ourselves as this united force when it comes to non-credit, when it comes to sharing information with everybody in the field, but also to kind of cut down the number of meetings. We realized ICCB was going to have learning communities, and then I believe the ISET had meetings scheduled, and WeTrained it as well. So once again, we're trying to be cognizant of everyone's time, and everyone's really busy. Next week, people probably be traveling, taking time off, and kind of the holiday shuffle starting to begin. So we want to be cognizant of everyone's time and make sure that the time that we do have is impactful for all of you. So for next week, on the 18th from 10 to 11, we're going to be having our non-credit learning community number 1, which is an introduction. For December 3rd is going to be our next non-credit to credit transitions webinar with Patty Zuccarello. And for that meeting, we're going to be focusing on getting onto the framework via collaboration. So we heard from a lot of the colleges that Patty's webinar, the first one, was great. Everyone really enjoyed the information being shared. Patty's a great speaker, and she's been working with community colleges in different capacities for many years. So she's one of our subject matter experts when it comes to community colleges, especially in this non-credit space. She's been doing a lot of work building this framework, tailoring it to our needs for the NSAW grant. And we're excited to have her, excited to have her aboard. So once again, if you don't have that meeting on your calendar, reach out to me and I will make sure to get that link sent to you. And I believe there's a registration so you can pre-register and get that loaded onto your calendar. For our next operational meeting for the NSAW grant, it will be December 19th at the same time slot as we always have, from 10 to 11:30. Currently our data team is compiling our Q3 reports and filtering that through our dashboard so we can begin looking at the outcomes and seeing what the programmatic numbers are for Q3. So at that next meeting, we're hoping to share out some important information during that. So if anyone's a data nerd like me and likes to look at those trends and the data and see where everything kind of is with the grant, the next operational meeting will be focused on that particular aspect. So once again, if that's not in your calendar, feel free to reach out. And then also, if there's anybody who's not on this call today that you believe would want to be a part of the meeting, you can always feel free to share those invites as well. Once again, the more people that we have on these calls, sharing information, sharing insights, it really benefits everybody involved. And then in January, moving down the line here, January 16th, we're going to be having our FY26 NSAW kickoff meeting. We like to host a kickoff to share some important updates for the FY26 grant. It's a good time if there's anybody who is going to be new working on the grant that they can begin to get a feel for what the program is, data collection processes, quarterly reporting, things like that. So be sure to attend that meeting here in January. And then the final reminder is just for FY24 Q4 and closeout reports. Those will be due January 30th, 2026. And I know that closeout reports is on there as well. I believe that, Kristen, I believe you can speak to this a little bit more. Closeout reports are due, I can't remember the date.
Yeah, closeout reports are due 60 days after the end of the grant term. I actually happen to be in my big giant tracker that auto calculates that date for me. So it will be March 1st of 2026 will be when those are due. There's a quarterly report or a quarterly financial report that you need to do. Is there anything programmatic that they need to do by that date, Alex?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah, so it's just that quarterly financial report that's due that 60 days after the end of the grant term. That is done through Jotform now, so you can go there and fill it out. There's a whole closeout section that you'll check yes. That said, if you are done when you file your fourth quarter report, so that means if you're done on January or by that, by the closeout on 12/31, when you file that final fourth quarter report, that means that you've expended your grant funds, and that means that you've received all goods and services. So if you've ordered some equipment and you're still waiting, you'll have to wait till you get it to do that final financial in case something happens. But if you are done on that fourth quarter report, you can say on that little box, yes, I want this to also be my closeout report, and then you won't have to file a supplemental report. So it can be that fourth quarter. So what Tatiana is saying, the fourth quarter report is due January 30th. That is correct.
Yes.
That will cover your final quarter from 10/1 through 12/31. So that's your final report, your final quarter report. But if you have things outstanding, if bills haven't been invoices haven't been paid, goods haven't been received, if you're still waiting on some equipment or some supplies, you can't actually close that out until you receive them or until you pay that final thing. So part of I believe it's from the Grant Recovery Act, there's a closeout financial report that's required 60 days after. So those are separate financial reports with different deadlines. One's 30 days and one's 60 days. So that fourth quarter is due January 30th. If you need to file an additional report, again, if you're done, mark that box when you're filling out the Jotform, and we don't require anything else. We'll mark that you don't need a closeout. But if you have anything outstanding that gets cleared up, file, sometime between 1/1 when the grant's over and I guess February 28th when the day before the deadline. If you pay anything off, if you receive any goods, then you file that one. You don't need to wait till that deadline. If you've closed it out, if it comes in on February 2nd, you can file it on February 2nd. So, but But yeah, the only reason you would need to do that additional is if you have some loose ends hanging out at 12/31. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And then actually, you brought up the February 28th. So one other thing, I didn't have this in the slide here, it just came back to me. One of the requirements of the NSAW grant for FY25, and this is also for FY26, is that each college at the end of the grant, I believe it's by that February 29th deadline, that each college submit one student success story and one employer success story. For that process, the ICCB, we have a template that we will provide to everybody when it comes closer to that date to complete those success stories. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. I'll probably send that here sooner than later, so everybody has that template available. We received an overwhelming amount of success stories in FY24, which actually really helped us build our FY24 final report, which is I believe is completed now, and we are ready to share with everybody out in the field, which shows success stories, both employer and student as well. And one thing too is that we only required one story, but a lot of the colleges, I mean, some would send in 10 student success stories or 5 employer success stories. So it's really great to read that information and to see just the impact that this work has done throughout the years. And we want to continue collecting that information, sharing that out with the field and anybody who has interest in the NSAW grant as well. And once again, it's really important information that we can share with the legislature to show the value of our non-credit programs. So that'll be coming out. That guidance will be coming out here shortly through our listserv. So be on the lookout for that. And I think that is all the items that we have here today. So what I'm going to do, I'll stop sharing the screen. And we have about 10, we have until 11:30 technically, but if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself, type in the chat. We want to make sure that while we're here together, we can answer any questions that you all have. Okay, so Arena had a question. So student success template different from the ones we had last year? No, so it won't be different. I think there will probably be some date changes, just kind of updating things for FY25. And pictures, photographs, they are not required. They're optional. Just one thing to note is make sure that when you submit anything that has a picture of a student employer, that you submit a, trying to think of the word for it, a form that
release.
Thank you, Val. I appreciate that. My brain was kind of cycling that through there for a minute. So yeah, make sure that you submit a release with that as well, because that information that's shared with ICCB, we'll use that for marketing, reporting, sharing that out with the field. So thanks for the question, Arena, and thank you, Val. Let me go through. Okay, I think we answered that question. Okay, Val, you said you don't have a learning community either. Was it a calendar invite? I believe
Alex, I just sent an invite. I just sent an email to the non-credit listserv, but it didn't have the time in it. So Dalton sent me the registration link, and I just replied to my email and sent it back to everybody. So you do have to register for these learning communities. So that's a little bit different than what we had before, but that is in the link. I see Dalton's putting it in there now, and it is also in the listserv. So if you didn't get it, I'm wondering if you're on the listserv.
That is it. Yes. In the past year, we've had some little technical snafus with our listserv, where sometimes things will go to people's other or junk mailbox. That's nothing we can really do on our end here at the ICCB to prevent that. So maybe just make sure that you're checking those other mailboxes. Every so often, the same thing happens to me when I receive something from a colleague. It'll go into my other mailbox. I'm like, oh, well, I was looking for that. So be sure that you're looking at those. And if you don't know if you're on the listserv, or if you have anybody, Bonnie, just saw your message come through, or if you have anybody else who wants to be a part of listserv, just send me a request via email, and we will work with to get you on there. And then, yeah, Chris, that point there, yes. It's more on the colleges side. You'll have to talk with your IT division there to whitelist the ICCB non-credit grantees at illinois.gov listserv. So if you haven't done that, be sure to reach out to your IT division to get that work done. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Or did you have?
Oh, I was going to say another, because most colleges have lots of grants. You're probably pretty safe if whitelisting Illinois.gov. And then you'll just not have any government, official emails blocked. But so that might be the quicker way.
Very good point. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Are there any other questions about anything we've covered here today? Like I said, I'm going to share these slides out to everybody on the listserv, and then also on our grantee resources page, which is housed on ICSPS's website. You'll be able to find today's recording once it's uploaded, and then also previous operational meeting recordings as well. If you want to take a look at those, share those with anybody, feel free to do so. Okay, I don't think there's anything in the chat here. I know it's a beautiful Friday. Everyone probably wants to be outside right now, soaking up the sun while we still have it before all that snow hits. I do not envy all the snow everybody else got. I'm trying to keep that away for as long as possible. But well, I guess we'll go ahead and conclude today's meeting. Thank you all for joining us. I hope everybody has a happy and restful holiday season. Just know that everyone here at the ICCB is available, and if you need anything, feel free to reach out. And with that, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all.
Yeah, great job, Alex. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.